Hello there, and welcome back to another ClueCon Weekly. It's David Duffett here, Worldwide Community Advocate at SignalWire. And this week, I'm very pleased to have in the ClueCon Weekly studio, Saúl from the Jitsi project. How are you doing today, Saúl?
Hey, folks. Hey, David. Thanks a lot for having me. I'm actually doing great today. I'm really happy to be here and be able to share some of our stories and some of a project update and see where we're going and where we came from. So yeah, good stuff.
Excellent. We're pleased to have you along, Saúl. Jitsi is a highly relevant project in today's world. It's always been relevant, but things are kind of brought into sharper focus, if you like, in the situation we find ourselves in. But before we carry on to that and talk more about Jitsi in general and maybe some of the interesting things that have come out since people were compelled, if you like, to use more video conferencing solutions, I'd just like to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself in case people have not come across you before. I've been blessed to know you for a good few years. We found ourselves mixing at places like Astricon and OpenSIP Summit, and so I know that you've been involved in the world of VoIP and RTC for a good long time. But please give us a little bit of a background of Saúl first.
Sure thing, I'd be happy to. So yeah, as you said, my background is actually 100% RTC. Started with VoIP through an old friend. I discovered Asterisk in 2005, I think it was. And it was completely mind-blowing, right? Like you could connect your phone to your computer and make it do stuff. It was amazing. So I got completely hooked, and it was roughly at that time when I discovered the idea of open source, not in the sense of pure code being thrown out at some wall on the internet, but rather this idea of a community, right? So there was and still is a very active Asterisk community for Spanish speakers, and I used to hang out there for quite a while. And then as time passed, I started working on a more professional capacity once I finished my studies, working on developing PBXs for small and medium-sized businesses. Then a few years later, I jumped into working with what at the time felt like the next thing, right? You want to go bigger systems. So it was carrier grade like infrastructure. That's where I got to play with OpenSIPs. For instance, that was like one of the projects I worked on for a while. And at the same time, other than server-side software, I also worked on client-side software, a SIP client, which was called Blink at the time. And then, WebRTC happened. And when WebRTC happened, all your communications suddenly sort of jumped into the browser. And I started working on a platform, well, similar to what we're using here, to what Jitsi is, to, many things, which was called Silk Server, was together with Janos. It was like this platform where you could connect legacy SIP endpoints into the WebRTC world, or legacy SIP infrastructures to a WebRTC world. And after that, I joined Jitsi to work on it and help drive it forward. I'm part of the mobile team, even though I wear a number of hats. And one of them is that I call myself the self-appointed chief evangelist of wherever I go. So as you've said, we've met all around the world a number of times. And so that's how I interacted with a number of communities, both with friend projects, competing projects, projects that we have no affiliation with. And ever since I started, this idea of the community was what drove me into it, and it's sort of what keeps me doing what I do.
It's a great community to be part of, isn't it? The open source WebRTC VoIP community, or sometimes summed up as just the open source RTC community. And you mentioned about when WebRTC happened. Of course, we kind of take it for granted these days, but that was kind of 8-9 years ago now, wasn't it? 2011, 12 is when it first, happened, if you like.
Exactly. Yeah, it's crazy to think that right now, probably the most polished media engine out there is WebRTC, no questions asked, I would say. And it's available for free for everyone to use, and it's built into your browser. So it suddenly enabled so many people to work on this space where it used to be like, let's say, a smaller club, if you will, with less players, more complex pieces, because you needed to do lots of things all across the stack. Right now, you just take WebRTC as it goes and you build on top of it. You can at least, contain the complexity in a box and focus on your own product. So from that perspective, it has been a huge success. And WebRTC, for instance, it brought to the table like unprecedented high quality echo canceling that wasn't around back then. I remember one of the first forays I had with WebRTC was not building an actual WebRTC application, but taking the echo canceller and applying it to our SIP client so that it would actually do a better job at echo canceling. And that was very successful because it worked so well.
Yeah, very, very much so. And by the way, you mentioned that you work with the mobile client for Jitsi, and I'd like to congratulate you because it's a great mobile client. I've used it on the Android operating system, and it works very nicely. Lots of cute options in there to use, and yeah, excellent stuff. Now, Jitsi, of course, is a project that is open source. It remains open source. However, it's been acquired by a commercial entity. So I wonder if you could talk just a little bit about how that happened and whether your life changed or not as that open source project came under the umbrella of a commercial organization or a more commercial organization.
Yeah, absolutely. I can. So the start of it was that there was this company called Blue Gimp, which was Emil's company. He is the project founder. And yeah, Emil Ibov. And this company was acquired by Atlassian, I think it was 2015. And then Jitsi was part of Atlassian at that point. I joined the Jitsi team in 2017. And at that point in time, we were part of Atlassian, and our job there was we were part of a larger organization, which was Stride. Stride was, well, it used to be HipChat, then they renamed it to Stride. And that was this chat client that was meant to compete with Slack. And we were powering the meetings part and the sort of calling part of this application. Now in 2018, late 2018, yeah, the Stride project got canceled. They decided to sort of give up the fight, if you will. And then the idea was that everybody that was working as part of this organization could find a job internally to Atlassian or, live with actually in very, very good conditions. But the Jitsi team got a little bit of a different treatment because, at the end of the day, it was basically the same people that were part of the original company, plus minus two, So instead of like, okay, we acquired you and now we're throwing you away, they actually helped us sell the team to another company.
Right.
And here is where 8x8 comes in, right? So 8x8 was looking to revamp their meetings offering, and 8x8 is a communications company, and it's a perfect fit because they were in need of a meetings product to improve what they had, and we had the meetings product that we wanted to put somewhere, let's say. So in a way, it's a match made in heaven because at Atlassian, and don't get me wrong, we had a great run there. We were one feature of a non-core product, but here we are front and center. So 8x8 sells virtual office, and a core feature of it is meetings. And even more, we now have 8x8 Meetings, which is a standalone product that is only meetings. And that is 95% or 90% Jitsi, 10% extra stuff on top of it, logging with different auth providers, some extra features that cost a certain amount of money. So we cannot like deploy for free on Jitsi for everybody. And some, it is very configurable, but we provide a specific set of features on the 8x8 platform, for instance. And so how is life for us? Well, it's great. not only because we're doing what we like to do, but for example, when the COVID pandemic hit, well, suddenly we found ourselves completely flooded, right? People were starting to use our platform a lot, especially when first it was Italy who locked down their country, and then I'm gonna talk about it a little bit. I have a brief presentation, but I think it's the biggest online schooling platform in Italy. It's called WeSchool. Built their thing on top of Jitsi. So we suddenly had a lot more users than the usual, and they doubled every day when the crisis started. So this was insane. But thankfully, we both had the architecture to be able to scale. We had lots of problems to solve, but fundamentally nothing changed. The building blocks are all the same and they're interconnected in the same way. We just removed some things that we didn't realize were problematic until they became problematic. But also, crucially, 8x8 sort of completely supported us. Like, this operation was by no means cheap. We dropped everything we were doing, priorities were shifted, and our priority number one was to keep the service alive for those who wanted to use it. In the process, we have done new features. We have learned a lot from all the feedback we've received. But our main focus remained, make this platform scale for everybody and make the adjustments necessary that come from growing pains. We think that, during these few months, we may have advanced in our growth, like I don't know, 10 years, who knows, It's hard to tell because we never, like Jitsi, as you said, has been around for quite a while, but we never guerrilla marketed it, it was just there and people discovered it and used it. And of course, we all went to conferences and shouted out, hey, this is the best meetings thing you can use and yada, yada. But, fast forward to suddenly COVID and people have to use it, whether they like it or not, right? And you have, we had this gigantic growth and we had to deal with it on many different levels, and having a company support you in actually doing this, right? Because in a way, I don't know, I consider my personal, mission trying to help the more people out there, communicate. That's what I started to do over 10 years ago. And now here we are doing exactly the same thing. And so it has been great to see how things have developed, modulo all the bad things that have happened, right? But at least from where we stand, I take pride in knowing that we were able to help people for reals. Like, I will never forget these messages I exchanged with a doctor at a hospital in Italy, right? We had our support emails flooding, but and I was just scrolling through them every day and trying to reply to things that were, where I could help users. An email caught my eye because it was a thank you. This was not very common at one point in time because everybody was, crazy. This doesn't work, or I don't know how to do this. But suddenly there was this thank you email, right? And I was blown away by this guy working at a hospital in Italy where, it's not like they were idling. They had lots of stuff to do. And yet he took some time, took a couple of pictures with the team and sent us an email thanking us for what we were doing because they could allow their patients to communicate with the relatives that were unable to physically go to the hospital to visit due to the situation. And I had never had this feeling prior in my career where you see it, that close. Because technology is also somewhat distancing, right? It's just code written somewhere, but this felt very up close and personal. I'll never forget this.
Been a part of, and by the way, you talked about Jitsi support, and I would like to say what a great reputation that has for being reactive and just helping people that come on and ask these questions, even though you're making this freely available, and that's one of the wonderful things is that 8x8 have kept that free offering there, haven't they? Not only in the open source code, but the hosted service itself. as well. Now, Saúl, you mentioned you've got a presentation. Maybe now is the time to pop the screen share up and to have you go through your presentation, and maybe we'll just round up with a little bit of conversation afterwards.
Yeah, sounds great. Well, so this is a brief project update, pretty much trying to share the changes we've done recently and what's coming sort of down the pipeline.
Right.
I like to start my presentations about Jitsi trying to frame what actually is, because as you said, it's a project, it's a service, it's a number of things, if you will. So I like to call it an open source video collaboration platform. It's a platform that we A, host for free at Jitsi. B, you can host it yourself, and C, we are about to see. It's also a set of APIs and SDKs, so you can actually embed the meetings experience that you see at deployed in Jitsi in an existing application, so you can focus on developing your product further, without actually needing to own the entirety of a video collaboration platform. And our APIs are super high level, so you sort of embed the entire experience, and you don't have to finagle with streams and how do I handle, bandwidth and audio quality. All of that is taken care for you. You just embed the entire experience and go for it. So it's also that. And last, and also very importantly, it is a community. So we are a bunch of enthusiasts that like real-time communications, that like open source, and we have actually seen the engagement with the community go like a lot higher than the usual, in this situation, because more people notice the project and realize that they can help with big things and with small things. It can be a fix-up in a translation. It can be, I noticed this bug when doing this. So we really got lots of contributions to a point where it became actually hard for us to handle the amount of issues. And then, well, the community itself came to help. So we got some volunteers doing bug triaging and closing duplicate issues, trying to group issues that are in a specific area and the like. So this has also been wonderful to see how people came in to help and volunteer their time to make the project better.
Excellent.
So right now you can consume, like, how do you use Jitsi, right? As I said, it's an open source video collaboration platform. I would say there are 3 ways where you can consume it. A is via our freely available self-hosted service at meet.jit.si. Once you're there, once you end your meeting, you will actually get a prompt about the non-free offering that 8x8 has with some added features if you so desire to use them. One of those features, for instance, is transcriptions that you can get. You can, if you use the second way of using Jitsi, which is through self-hosting, you host it yourself, you have the same amount of features available, but you need to take care of them. That's the sort of the difference here. And then we have a third one coming up. I'm not sure we even have a name for it yet, but we sort of tried it out during this time with WeSchool. As I said, this biggest online e-learning platform in Italy is CPaaS, so communications platform as a service. So think of it as Jitsi as a service. Like, you like the service, you want to use it commercially for your own application, and you want to be able to make some choices, but you don't want to necessarily operate it yourself, scale it yourself. We have that experience, and this product is coming out real soon. I believe this might be the first time we're mentioning it, so here's a sneak peek.
Exclusive on ClueCon.
Yeah, hopefully we can share more of it real soon. And yeah, this is something we wanted to do for a long time, and I'm very happy sort of to share this with you, that this will be coming up for those who don't want to use any of the 2 options, and none of them are going away. So yeah, You can host it yourself, use the free one, or if you want something else, we will do a CPaaS.
Right.
I'm going to now jump into our recent, if you will, focus areas that have been affected, of course, by the current world situation. Because of COVID, we refocused what we were doing, or reprioritized and focused on some specific areas. Of course, first and foremost, the scalability. We wouldn't be able to do any of the rest if our service doesn't run. So we scaled Jitsi like never before. So we're talking by every metric went up by orders of magnitude. We were handling 100 times more traffic than in the very beginning of the pandemic. And as I said, in the first few days, things were doubling and doubling and doubling. So
yes, so you kind of had your own curve, just like everybody was watching the pandemic curve. You had a Jitsi curve.
Exactly. Yeah, we were looking at the numbers every day and going like, "Oh boy, we have never seen this one before." And then the next day, well, you're in for a surprise. Now it's kind of nice to talk about it right now that we are kind of out of it, because, for instance, the school is off in Spain and I believe Italy as well. But more importantly, we could solve the problem while the crisis lasted. It took us a little bit, but we solved our scaling problems. Like it was kind of changing the wheel of a car while it runs on the highway. Because, yeah, you couldn't tell people, please, can you wait a bit and not join in 5 minutes? And we're about to solve something. But it was like an all hands on deck situation, right? Everybody bouncing ideas on how to solve problems. And it was, a very, very crazy times, a different way of bonding with your own team, right? Because sometimes when things go right, things are easy, but when things are tough, that's different. And yeah, like as a team, we could execute on making sure this thing worked for everybody that needed to use it. So it was an incredible thing to be part of this team at that time. Next, of course, as I said, the CPaaS experiment we did with WeSchool. We hosted the platform. We added a bunch of features that are needed on use cases like that. So in a way, we learned a lot as well on how we wanna make this a better product now that we're about to launch it. Right. And we also saw a huge increase in people wanting to run their own. If I were to mention some, there is the Freifunk group out of Munich, I believe. They're running a pretty large setup using pretty much every component, and they contributed fixes. So we actually spent a lot more time than we usually did in making sure our Docker setup was nice and polished. And also Debian packages were up to date with the latest fixes that we were deploying basically daily to make sure that they were running the best Jitsi version they possibly could.
And I'm guessing, Saúl, for every involved body, if you like, that has taken Jitsi, run with it, and either suggested improvements or fed back bugs, there's probably also a more commercial organization that's taken Jitsi, skinned it, and made it a commercial offering without necessarily feeding lots of bits back. But I guess that is the world of open source, isn't it?
That is the world of open source indeed. But like we've never been worried about it. I don't know. Maybe it is because we know the product so well and we know how to scale it so well. That doesn't mean that anybody else cannot do it. But we think we can deliver a good product, and we have the added value of knowing exactly how every bit of code works. So we don't need to worry about that. But we've seen lots of more than launching a generic meeting solution, because in that case there's not a lot of added value, right? I think scenarios like the WeSchool scenario and other telehealth kind of applications are where Jitsi can really help, because you're like the meeting part is an important part, but it's not the core of your product. The core of your product is to help a patient to deliver a class, and then this is a means to an end, right? And being able to focus on your own product and leave meetings to us is sort of important to us.
Yeah, very much so. We had Tim Panton on ClueCon Weekly not so long ago, and he was talking about exactly that thing, about the context in which the tool is used and how that feeds in to details around the deployment and around the usability of it.
Yeah, exactly. And for instance, another, because so many people were having even family or casual meetings, we also saw some companies just spinning up servers just for people to use, right? Like one of them was Scaleway out of France. It's, I believe it's like like a cloud provider. And they had like this randomized Jitsi URL. I mean, we had made Jitsi that we over provisioned like crazy. Like imagine that before the crisis, we were operating tens of servers. So it was like you could even go and SSH and do stuff. You're not supposed to do that, but you could. But at one point during this whole thing, we were running thousands of servers. So then like this thing becomes completely different. You need to approach problems in a different way. So yeah, that we think we can offer the value there. We have of course the hosted platform, and if somebody else wants to come and sell Jitsi, that's great. That's great too. More power to you. We're not afraid of that. So another big focus area was privacy, security, and safety. I sort of grouped them together because the line between them tends to become fuzzy as depending on how you discuss it. And, it became a very big part of the conversation during this time. In general, we have always been focused on these areas, but in this time it was this perfect storm, right? In the sense that it was always one of the things we focused on. B, it was part of the conversation. And C, the Google team came up with some APIs in Chrome that facilitated some things that were not possible before.
Right.
Like, for example, end-to-end encryption. So end-to-end encryption was literally not possible in a browser in the SFU scenario. So the one that we cater for, where every participant, where the server forwards the video of every participant instead of mixing it. Because this means that the server is an endpoint. It needs to decrypt the media and forward it to another endpoint while re-encrypting it. So it technically has access to the media. Now, of course, we wouldn't tap on this media because we're not idiots, and we have been advocating for privacy. It is a core thing we do, but the technical possibility was there. Now, with the introduction of insertable streams, which is this technology right now only available in Chrome, where you are allowed to tap into the media stream and encrypt it yourself in your own application, so in the browser, we are in a point where the server that cannot read the media. It can forward it, but it cannot peek inside because it's encrypted with a different key that it cannot read. And this is while everything else was happening, we had a chance to focus on this and deliver the first working prototype, which is sort of what you see here right now. If every participant types in the same key, your meeting will be end-to-end encrypted. If you're in a meeting with someone and they set the key and you don't, you will start to see garbage and hearing broken audio because the media is encrypted, so it's not decodable, right? So this is one of the things we focused on as well. Then one of the saddest things during this time, because there's also sad things, is the abuse. So with the growing number of users, there's also a growing number of abuse. And for the life of me, I really don't understand what kind of people do some stuff that I don't want to say what it is because everybody in the business knows exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's not a good way to give them publicity, if you will. But we need to help our users have safer meetings. So we started by letting them know, because one of the ways we tell why people know Jitsi is easy to use is because you type a name for a meeting and then you're in. Like, it's not a weird URL with, like, you know, things that look like encoded characters or a UID, which is hard to tell someone. But if you put something like in the screenshot, right, simple meeting, that name is too simple. Someone may come and join, and then you would be surprised or startled. So we decided to alert users, and the solution to this is reasonably simple, right? So add more words. You can make it human words. It's like simple meeting between David and Saúl, and it's one sentence, but it's virtually unguessable. So we do have a random generator, but in case you opt to not use it and type your own, we're trying to let you know, hey, watch out, because things may happen. I have more on this in a little bit.
Okay.
Then we are also adding a pre-join screen of sorts. So right now, which is rolling out soon. So right now, when you join a meeting, you know, you're directly dropped into the meeting. And after you have given permissions to use your devices, this means that the moment you type in the URL, you're dropped into the conference with audio and video enabled. And this may cause some trouble for some people. And
just to interrupt very quickly, I did notice that in the mobile client, you can turn that off. So by default, you can go in with your devices disabled, can't you?
Exactly. So this is the typical case where trying to make your thing easy to use and not complex may yield to you know, not necessarily what you're aiming for. So what we're doing is we're deploying this pre-join screen, which is what you see here. Here you can select what media types, what camera you want, adjust your name, and only then join the meeting. But like, you know, we wanted to try to do it as seamless as possible. So for example, while you're here, your connection is starting. So you're not sending any video yet, but work is being done in the background. So the moment you hit join, boom, we start sending your video. And we don't need to like start connecting from the start, for example. So that is another sort of improvement we're about to roll out for this. And in addition to this, we introduced this simpler way to secure your meetings. We call it the lobby. So if you enable the lobby, when you join the meeting, when you try to join the meeting, you need someone on the inside to let you in. And they will get a notification which says, hey, Saúl wants to join. Do you let them in? Yes or no? And this...
I like that. That's a great mechanism.
It's a simpler way to using a password, because otherwise it means that I need to have another way to tell you what the password is so that you type it. So instead, we're doing this. So if I share the URL with you, let's say the group is complete, and now we enable the lobby. So if there's somebody else coming, then they sort of, internally the name of this is knock knock, because you sort of knock to enter. They get this prompt, and you know, you accept it and you're in. So this is another feature to make your meeting safer, and while trying to be the easiest possible, you know, for the user to turn on and have a safe meeting.
Right.
And another thing we're about to roll out, and this also comes from all the learning we've done throughout this time, is moderated meetings. On Meet Jitsi, because is a default install, everybody is a moderator, right? Our view of Meet Jitsi is that it models meetings after real life meetings, right? In real life, if you don't like the people around you, you walk away, right? But it turns out that
ideally, Saúl, you can't always do it, but ideally.
Ideally, exactly. So in a way, it's a bit too idealistic, right? Because in some scenarios, imagine e-learning, people don't have a choice, right? They have to be in class. So then, some of them are young, some of them are naughty, and some of them are both. And what will happen is that if they have the power to change the password, kick the teacher, they will do it. This is unavoidable. So what we're doing is adding a simple way to create a meeting where you have a secret link, where if you join using that link, you are the moderator. And then you give your guests a different link, and they are not the moderator. So
very similar to kind of audio conferencing, isn't it, with different pins, as it were?
Yes, indeed. It's a similar way. It took us a little bit of time to sort of iron out all the details of how we wanted to do it, because we already have authentication, right? But it's not enabled on Jitsi because, like, we don't want to handle users, keep accounts and do these kinds of things, because Jitsi is an anonymous meetings platform. But this is a way to have anonymous yet moderated meetings. So I, the host, generate this meeting ID, which is a special one. It contains a token, and this is completely stateless. It requires no real, like, having a server keep a list of your meetings or anything. And then this way we can actually scale it easily and make it easy for people to use as well. And the components to actually this very website is already open source. And I believe we're going to launch this very soon. So this is also an exclusive, if you will.
Good stuff. Another exclusive on CCW. Thank you so much.
Let's see. Of course, usability was a big thing, especially in the beginning. People that were joining Jitsi meetings for the first time, they were struggling with things that were, when sometimes you just can't see the forest for the trees, right? You've used it every day for so long that things don't have any meaning to you anymore. But to some people, things are hard. So
very much. Just a story on that very quickly. I'm part of a church that used Jitsi, and I noticed that people were getting confused between passwords and their name. So sometimes they'd show up in the meeting with the password as their name. And of course, it's something that, like you said, people like you and I would just breeze past because we do it day in and day out. But for those that are not used to it, sometimes there's issues.
Exactly. Yeah. So we tried to help by making the things that people needed the most more prominent. So for instance, we added this invite more, like you're the only one in the meeting, invite more people, because people were finding that, okay, I'm in a meeting, but how do I add more people, right? And we had a way to do it, but now we're putting it in your face. We're telling you, you're alone here, want more people to join you, here's how you can invite them. It may seem like a small improvement, but for many people, it was like, okay, so this is how we do it. And that's how they did it. Then at the bottom there, we have this shield with orange color. This brings up the security dialog that we saw before. I'm going to show it again now. So we grouped together all the options related to security and safety in a single place, so that it was easy to control how safe your meeting is or not. And then there's also the color of the shield tells you, it's like, hey, you should do something about this. Make sure it's green, so your meeting is nice and safe. I think, this is the invite dialog once more. So we made it so you can, invite them with dial in and share the meeting information. That drop down will expand to show you, well, share via Gmail or other types of emails, like a quick way for people to be able to invite others to this conference while already being in. This was a lot less obvious before because it relied you copying some information and crafting your own email. So right now, this should be a lot easier for people to use. Did I? Oh, no. The security dialog, actually, I'll go back to it here. So here we have the security options. So we have the password, we have the end-to-end encryption, and on deployments that have it, so soon on Jitsi as well, you'll see the lobby as an on and off setting here that you can turn on. And then boom, the lobby's set. You don't need to do anything else.
Good stuff.
So let's see. Of course, many people's browser of choice is Safari, and we didn't have that great support for Safari, so we fixed that. And now Jitsi works equally well in Safari, and people who use that browser don't need to scratch their heads and wonder why things may work different or not. Safari just works.
So that is the set of Safari, Chrome, and Firefox. And where do things stand on Microsoft platforms?
Well, given that Microsoft ditched their own browser, sort of, so they ditched their own Edge.
And they were going to use Chromium, weren't they?
Exactly. So then the new Edge is based in Chromium. So essentially, we didn't have to do anything because it supported right out of the box. And we did make it. We did find that some Chromium derivatives were actually not being detected properly. So we also fixed those, like Vivaldi at one point, Brave, Opera. They're all based in Chromium, but we had some minor problems detecting, and those are fixed now. I didn't highlight them here because Safari support was somewhat, I don't know, I guess more desired, or the people wanted it to make more noise. I can't tell, but we did that. People can now use it without wondering what's going on. And likewise, we enabled Jitsi in the mobile browsers that work, like Safari and Chrome and Firefox on Android. It's usable in those browsers. The user interface is not 100%, mobile friendly yet. We're working on it, but we are bringing it to the web. So now the obvious question is, but you have an app. So yes, that is true. And that's where the full power is and will continue. But if you want to have a quick meeting, you may not need all the mobile specific features that the mobile app has to offer. So for a quick meeting, launching on web should be fine. And that's why we enabled it. And people have been using it for a while already.
Right.
And there's more, but I decided to focus on some stuff. We've done bandwidth usage optimizations, and this is like a permanent focus area, if you will, making sure that we are using just the right amount of bandwidth that we should have to give you the best possible video quality.
Yeah, just on the bandwidth, isn't it amazing that maybe 4 months ago we'd have been sat here saying, oh yeah, there's just so much bandwidth available now. People have got 200 meg fiber to their home and all this kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden, there's a massive rush. And of course, in the early weeks of the virus business, there was a strain on bandwidth, wasn't there, with both mobile providers and commercial broadband providers to homes and businesses having to kind of redouble their efforts and make more bandwidth available.
Absolutely, and there's also the case that in your typical household, there are many devices, but using multiple video conferencing systems at the same time puts a strain on your Wi-Fi. For example, it's not used. Some routers are not used to having that much bandwidth traversing them continuously. So, for example, reacting properly to packet loss is a permanent area of focus to try to survive these problems and make it more resilient and work. Not feel the fact that your network may have had a glitch. Try to overcome those to the best of our ability. Of course, we cannot make bites out of thin air, but the closest to that. We did have some problems in the very beginning with recordings. Many people were doing recordings, and we found some bugs in our recording software. Fixed those, made it more resilient. Audio and video quality improvements as part of our routing and trying to make sure that you get the right amount of resolution and frames per second to make a fluid meeting interaction. This is something we focus on constantly. We saw a huge growth in our internationalization efforts. Lots of community members trying to help and and complete the translations in their mother tongues in other languages. So lots of contributions in that area. And last, community growth. So in general, our forum was exploding, our GitHub issues were exploding, our support email was exploding. We had millions of users on the mobile platform. So the people that were using Jitsi, talking about Jitsi, we saw people creating videos, creating tutorials, sharing their stories and their screenshots on Twitter and the like. So we saw this huge explosion, which has been incredible to see, right?
And by the way, you mentioned recordings. I noticed recently Chad Hart, a well-known name in the WebRTC world, had done an article about recording with Jitsi.
I saw it too. He did an article on just for the viewers on local recording. In what I mentioned is our server-side recordings that right now are able to record to Dropbox or on the 8x8 offering. There's a cloud storage, and then you get the link to the video. I don't know if there are any plans on our side to do local recordings, because there are challenges like what if you drop off and things like that. We like our server-side recording because you can self-host it, and we did it also so it drops your recording at the moment on Dropbox. Unfortunately, this year we didn't get accepted on Google Summer of Code, and one of the projects that we had for it was having other backends, right? So that we could put your recording in other cloud storage providers, and this. This allows us to not hold on to your recording because it's privacy sensitive. There's, even probably GDPR implications. Not a lawyer, so I don't know. But we don't want to have any data on you. So
just coming back to what you're saying about the difficulty with local recordings, I think just the overall principle of sticking with things that you are in control of and you can influence properly is a good principle to stick with.
Yes, that's also true. So the good thing is that the way he did it is like a plugin. So for those who want to use it, they're more than welcome to do so. But yeah, so basically this was just a glimpse of what has been going on, and we continue to improve on all of these items and more. That's all I got from that presentation perspective.
I appreciate it a lot, Saúl, and you actually answered one of the questions I'd kind of got saved up, ready for the end of the presentation, was what had happened as a result of so many people more using it and the lessons you learned. And of course, you covered that in the presentation, so very valuable. Thank you very much for doing that. You've been through probably a period of extreme testing and growth over the last few months.
Yeah, it has been, as I said, unprecedented. We're still, on the long tail of this, and if you look at the news, it's not clear if there will be a surge towards the end of the year or not. I like to think that we're a lot more ready than we were since the beginning of this. If shit hits the fan again, but whatever happens, we're very thankful to everybody that helped spread the word out, like you for having us here, being able to tell a story, right? Even if we had a great story to tell, if nobody we need the mic to tell the story.
Well, no, we're glad to have you along.
Absolutely.
One question I also came to mind is that we've talked about the massive peak that would have come in sort of late, maybe April sort of time as people climbed on. Has that lulled down at all as people have started to go back to work, or are you finding that actually people have realised that working from home is a plausible solution even when you don't have to, and you're noticing that your use stays high?
Yeah, I mean, the numbers haven't gone back to the start, and I don't think they'll ever will, because heck, I even see it in my own home, right? My wife is right now working in the other room, and she has now discovered that not having to go to the office is fantastic. So why go there in the first place? And I believe there's many more people like this. So I think this put a stress on, I mean, even on our own company, right? So we build a video collaboration product, but 8x8 has offices. So actually, funny enough, for us in the Jitsi team, this comes natural because it's always been distributed. But for the company itself, this is not that common. And for many other companies, like even, the big ones, your Google, Facebook, Twitter, they have had to make these huge adjustments. And like this has had these weird ramifications. Like I think I saw an article about how some food delivery service ended up banning Facebook's VPN IP because so many employees, while connected to the VPN, ordered food online and they thought they were under attack. Because it came from the same place, right? So
denial of meals attack.
Yeah, sort of. So imagine this with video conferencing, right? Like I think many companies will become more flexible to this because they will have realized, look, turns out that people didn't come to the office, but life moves on and things still got done. So then maybe this works and we can actually rent a smaller office. I don't know.
Yeah.
So at least sort of just to wrap it up, I'm extremely thankful to having been able to collaborate, help in certain way, for people to be able to have the easiest meeting they possibly could to talk to the people they wanted to. And the overwhelming feedback that we got is positive. And we're so glad for everybody that helped us get where we are in any shape or form, because there's so many ways to help an open source project.
Great. I'm sure the world is very, very thankful to you. And like you said, that Italian doctor who took time out to feed that back to you. Excellent. It's,
exactly.
Top class that you're able to do that. Great, Saúl. Well, we're just coming to the end of our conversation. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we call it a day?
No, I believe that's all I got. I think that so later next month, or well, actually this month, we will be participating also in Dan Jenkins's event at ComCon, and Emil and I will be sharing some extra stuff. So make sure you tune in.
Okay, good news. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming along, Saúl. We've enjoyed having you along. Thank you for sharing your experience and also those exclusive revelations about the Jitsi project and the Jitsi product here on ClueCon Weekly. And you mentioned Dan Jenkins' ComCon, which I think is July 13th through 17th. And of course, it would be totally remiss of me not to mention ClueCon Deconstructed, which is also coming along online. And that's going to be between August the 4th and the 6th. So all it remains for me to do is to say thank you very much, Saúl. And I hope I get to see you in a live event before too long. All the best to you.
Indeed. All the best, David. See ya. Bye-bye.